Hold on to your seats, family, because the NFL gridiron is officially turning into a certified Hollywood blockbuster, and nobody is ready for the pure, unadulterated chaos brewing out of the Windy City. Welcome back to the channel. It is your boy Fave, dropping the ultimate truths. And today we have a special guest in the building, my brother Dre Fiver from Street Hoops, joining the absolute madness. Let us get something straight right out of the gate. The Chicago Bears are becoming exactly what every single defensive coordinator, every rival franchise, and every hater in the NFC North absolutely dreaded. They are transforming from the lovable losers who could not string together two consecutive passes into an absolute cold-blooded machine designed to rip the soul out of the National Football League. If you watch that clip of Ben Johnson, you know this is not just normal offseason hype. This is a total, structural shift in power. The Chicago Bears just went from a bottom-feeding 5-win squad and flipped the script entirely to lock down an 11-win campaign in a single season. They captured the NFC North crown for the first time since 2018, and they did it with a flair for the dramatic that should honestly come with a health warning for people with heart conditions. Remember that playoff game against the Green Bay Packers? They erased an 18-point hole to completely bury their bitter rivals on the postseason stage, securing the largest postseason comeback in the legendary history of the franchise. That is not just a win, family. That is an eviction notice served straight to the rest of the league. And then, just when you thought the noise could not get any louder, the offseason arrived, and things got completely out of control. Picture this. A young, hungry, second-year wide receiver walks right onto the grass at organized team activities and looks like an absolute alien compared to everyone else. He is moving at a completely different speed, snatching balls out of the stratosphere, and leaving defensive backs looking for map directions. Nobody inside the facility can stop talking about him, and his name is going to be ringing out in your nightmares for the next decade. Keep that name locked away in your brain, because we are circling back to him, and he is going to change the entire landscape of professional football. But to understand the true terror of what Chicago is building, you have to look at the guy pulling the trigger. Caleb Williams is officially the king of the world, capturing the cover of Madden this year as the undeniable, undisputed new face of the entire sport. In his rookie campaign, he did not just play quarterback. He went out there and completely shattered the single-season passing record for the Chicago Bears, throwing for an electric 3,942 yards. Think about the historic names that have worn that uniform and realized a rookie just rewrote the entire record book on his first try. Head coach Ben Johnson cannot stop raving to reporters about how much sharper his accuracy has become and how his ball placement looks cleaner than a luxury showroom. The front office did not sit on their hands either. They completely turned over the weapons room. They traded away DJ Moore to the Buffalo Bills in a move that had fans scratching their heads, but it was all part of the master plan because the keys to the kingdom now officially belong to Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, and a rising star that absolutely nobody expected to arrive this incredibly fast. One quiet, calculated move this spring completely solved the biggest structural headache on the entire offense, and the ripple effect from that single transaction alters the trajectory of their entire season. Now, before all you offensive junkies get too excited, we have to flip the script and look at the defensive side of the football, because that is where the real dramatic transformation is taking place. Defensive coordinator Dennis Allen walked into the building, looked at the unit he inherited, and decided to completely tear it down to the studs. He rebuilt the entire back end of that defense around pure, unadulterated speed and young, aggressive legs. Now look, I am going to keep it completely real with you, because Fave does not sugarcoat anything. The pass rush still has major, glaring questions, and the secondary has even more holes to patch up. But here is why it does not even matter. The upcoming regular season schedule sets up beautifully for a division that is suddenly looking incredibly soft at the very top. The Detroit Lions collapsed into absolute pieces the exact moment Ben Johnson walked out of their door and packed his bags for Chicago. The Lions went from an elite 15-win powerhouse right down to a mediocre 9-win team that missed the postseason tournament entirely. Their offense, which had just set a franchise scoring record, completely cratered without his genius, dropping a full yard per play across the entire season. Detroit found themselves sitting at home in January for the first time since 2022, proving that Chicago did not just hire a football coach. They literally stole an entire kingdom. Meanwhile, the Green Bay Packers are carrying an incredibly deep self-inflicted wound after losing their absolute best defensive asset, all-pro edge rusher Micah Parsons, to a devastating torn knee late last season. Without his terrifying presence on the edge, the entire Packers pass rush went completely silent. Caleb Williams already went out there and bust them up twice last year, including that unforgettable postseason comeback at Soldier Field. And while Jordan Love keeps Green Bay somewhat dangerous, a defense missing its ultimate anchor gives Chicago a massive matchup advantage they simply did not possess a year ago. The primal fear in this historic rivalry has completely flipped sides, and Chicago smells massive pools of blood in the water. Every single piece of the puzzle is falling perfectly into place for something the city of Chicago has hungered after for an entire generation. But before we dive into the deep, dark secrets of this roster, do me a massive favor. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let us try to target at least 500 likes on this video to keep the realest NFL content on the internet flowing. Let us talk about the ultimate point of anxiety entering the spring workouts, because the biggest worry coming into organized team activities sat directly at the left tackle position. Avi Trapillo unfortunately tore his patellar tendon during the intense playoff run and is locked in to miss at least the first half of the upcoming season. That meant the critical human being responsible for protecting the blind side of franchise savior Caleb Williams looked like a giant, terrifying question mark. But then, Braxton Jones walked through the doors, completely rebuilt like a high-end sports car. Remember, this man fractured his ankle late in the 2024 campaign and tried to rush back onto the field way too soon last year, which completely hindered his play. This spring, however, he looks visibly healthier, significantly stronger, and more sure of his footwork than at any single point since that original injury took place. Last year, the coaching staff dragged out the left tackle decision deep into the regular season before finally settling on Tripolo, and the offense paid a massive, painful price for that constant uncertainty. This time around, the definitive answer arrived early, and it arrived in a very familiar face. The tape absolutely backs up the incredible hype. Before that brutal ankle injury shut him down, Braxton Jones allowed only 2 measly sacks and 15 pressures across 210 snaps in a 4-game stretch. Pro Football Focus at one point graded him inside the top third of every single tackle in professional football. To get his mind and body right, he spent the entire offseason training in the trenches with retired superstar Teron Armstead, who is widely regarded as one of the finest, most technically sound pass protectors of his generation. The coaching staff noticed the stark difference the absolute moment the spring work opened up. Ben Johnson sounds like a head coach who has seen more than enough to make up his mind, pointing directly to a healthier physical frame and a much sharper mental approach as the core reasons why the starting job feels incredibly close to being completely locked down. The competition behind him stays incredibly friendly but competitive. Jedrick Wills Jr. signed a lucrative 1-year deal to push the room after sitting out all of last season, while Theo Benedict keeps stealing highly valuable reps and earning praise from the front office. Both of these guys are pushing Braxton Jones to his absolute limits without actually scaring the coaching staff about the depth. Meanwhile, the right tackle position remains completely locked down, with second-team All-Pro Darnell Wright anchoring the edge like an absolute brick wall. The left side of the line once looked like the absolute softest spot on the entire roster, but it now looks like an elite strength forming in real time right before our eyes. Unfortunately, that same level of calm and stability does not even close to existing on the other side of the ball, where the real, unfiltered drama currently lives. Dennis Allen inherited a defensive scheme built entirely
Man, special teams demon coming through for us right when we need it. We need an onside kick, Josh Blackwell!
While that ball-hawking instinct was truly elite, it completely masked a soft, vulnerable middle and a pass rush that went totally ghost for long stretches of the year. Dennis Allen knows from years of experience that turnovers will naturally regress if you do not get real, consistent heat on the opposing quarterback. The defensive front desperately needed warm bodies. Montez Sweat leads the group after dropping 10 sacks last year, and he remains the highest-paid player on this entire roster, for a very good reason. But the whole pressure problem starts with the man who is supposed to line up directly across from him. Right now, that specific spot on the field looks more like a hospital recovery ward than an NFL defensive line. Dayo Odeyingbo signed a massive 3-year, $48 million contract with $32 million guaranteed, and then immediately went out there and tore his Achilles tendon for the second time in his professional career, finishing last year with only 1 lonely sack across 8 games. He is currently working his way back incredibly slowly, and the team cannot afford to rush him. Behind him on the depth chart, Shamar Turner is rehabbing a serious knee injury of his own. The Bears desperately need both of these monsters healthy, but the timeline remains incredibly cloudy heading into training camp. Every single snap they miss in the spring raises the stakes exponentially on the one young pass rusher, who is trending straight to the moon. Austin Booker is the ultimate swing piece for this entire organization. He missed the first 7 games of last year, then completely erupted for 4.5 sacks over the final 6 contests, even throwing in a massive playoff sack for good measure. He piled up 23 total pressures in that blistering closing stretch, averaging roughly 4 pressures per game. The front office went out and hired line coach Jeremy Garrett specifically to sharpen up technique across the board, And if Austin Booker takes the next logical step in his development, this defensive front goes from shaky to absolutely frightening. Even with all that defensive drama, the most shocking, mind-boggling story of the entire offseason has absolutely nothing to do with sacks, contracts, or injuries. Here is the statistical anomaly that the rest of the National Football League deliberately avoids talking about. Over the course of the last 4 seasons, the Chicago Bears carry a league-worst, jaw-dropping negative 795 net penalty yardage gap. Let that number sink into your brain for a second. Last season alone, they drew the absolute fewest penalty yards on their opponents in the entire NFL, coming in at a pathetic 678 yards, which is nearly 200 full yards under the league average. Renowned sports analyst Warren Sharp dug deep into the film and the official flags, and he gave this bizarre feeling a definitive name. Around the city, Bears fans call it the official Bears tax. At the absolute center of this officiating storm sits Caleb Williams. Defensive players hit this young man well over 100 times across his first 2 seasons in the league. They sacked him a brutal 68 times in his rookie year alone. And yet, through 2 full regular seasons of taking absolute punishment, NFL officials threw exactly 0 roughing the passer flags in his favor. 0. Let that marinate. Backup quarterbacks who came off the bench to start a handful of games drew significantly more protection